What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to Racially Speaking. I'm your host, David Phipps. Also joining me today, the man you all know and love, my prodigal co-host, the I almost said space cowboy, the social justice cowboy himself,
Space.
Mr. Two Chains. What was I think, Mr. Chili Cook-Off Champion, and a slew of other nicknames, but I'll leave it at that for now.
That's right. That's right. Yeah.
He's back.
Yeah.
Mr. Wyatt, John Mark Walker. What's going on, man?
What's up? How you doing?
I'm good, man. As
Good.
always. I mean, I always say this, but it's like literally been way too long since we've done this, man. I'm
It
glad to see
has
your
been.
face.
Me too. I'm glad to be back in this chair, virtual chair, I suppose. This audio chair.
Yeah,
But it's
audio
good to be
chair.
back.
You gotta trademark that
Yeah.
audio chair.
Audio chair.
There's some kind of deal
Yeah.
there.
You think so? I'm
Yeah.
looking for
Oh yeah.
deals. Deals would be
Absolutely.
nice.
Absolutely. We'll trademark it we'll trademark it and then sponsor it ourselves. There's something there. I know there's something there.
Yeah, we can put it on a t-shirt. Merchandise.
Mm-hmm.
Audio chair.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So look, man, like I think we owe it to the listeners to catch up a little bit. Do people know the big life change that is headed your way, you and your family's way? Do you want to,
Oh, that
formally announce that?
we got a baby girl coming in 7 weeks, I think.
7 weeks.
Yeah. So another one. We're excited. Um, yeah, I'm very excited to have another girl. Girls are very sweet. They bring lots of beauty into life and good smells and not as much violence as boys bring. So that's what girls bring. So I'm excited. I'm excited for another daughter. It'll be fun. It'll be very sweet to have another baby girl.
Shout out to
Yeah.
Meg, in the home stretch.
Shout out to Meg because she's
last
the one
trimester.
doing the birthing, not me. So
Yeah,
shout out
it's
to
not
Meg.
about you, John Mark.
No, I get to be support for her. So
Yeah. And of course, we are both, as we've been catching up before hitting record, we are recording. It's about 9 o'clock at night, but it's only this late because we're both in T-ball season.
T-ball season. That's
Has
right.
Webb played?
That's
Is this
right.
Webb's first year playing?
It's his first year playing. Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
and Millie's first too, right?
Millie's first. Yeah, she loves it.
Yeah, it's a fun thing to watch them all scramble after that ball once somebody eventually connects with it. It's a fun thing to see.
Now, do they do like in Radford? Do they do everyone bats through, no outs? They kind of go through the motions, and then the last batter gets to hit a quote unquote home run.
Yep, exactly. And everyone goes to first base.
Okay.
Yeah, no winners, no losers. They try to make them touch all the bases, but who knows?
Right.
It's fun chaos. Yeah.
Everyone runs around the whole bases, but how many runs are
they
actually
they
scored?
run near the bases. Yeah.
Yeah.
And my son, he runs fast, which is great because at first he was just kind of jogging along. I was like, no, buddy, you got to run as fast as you can from base to base. But he's starting to learn that you have to touch home plate.
Yeah.
You got to go back to where you started, and then you can walk off the field.
Right.
So he's picking that up.
My favorite is when the last batter goes, everyone runs home, but when somebody gets lapped, like the hitter passes like two people. Yeah, that's always the best.
Yeah, which this shows my ignorance about baseball, but I think you can't do that, right? Like
you cannot do that.
No. Yeah,
you cannot do that.
You cannot do that.
That would be. I don't know what that would be called, but yeah.
I learned that from the movie Rookie of the Year. That's it. It's throwback. You remember that?
Oh,
when
yeah.
The kid was running. He was running in front of somebody, and he was just a kid, so he wasn't as fast as the other runners. But
I was just gonna say I don't remember that, but now that you say it, I do. I can picture it.
Yeah, and I don't remember why he was on a base. Well, he was a pitcher, right? And so I don't know how they got him on a base, but the guy I think literally pushed him.
I remember him being home. The old veteran player was like saying go go. Yep.
Yeah, right behind.
And I think they both slid. They both slide and both score.
Yep. See, movies are educational.
You
know.
Yeah. So
I grew up. It's a throwback to the '90s.
Right. A lot of people know I grew up playing ice hockey, and I've just been reminiscing a little bit. It's I see commercials for NHL playoffs going on, and I just told Caitlin, I was like, "Wow, is it about time for me to bust out the Mighty Ducks trilogy for at least Ollie.
There you go. Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
yeah,
He's old enough now.
I think so.
Yeah, we
Um,
watched it when we were his age, and we're
yeah,
fine. There's nothing wrong with
yeah,
millennials.
yeah. Nothing wrong with
Yeah,
us. Uh huh. I think I'm
yeah.
gonna do it soon. I'm gonna do it soon.
You should.
I
I mean,
might
I'm sure
start
it's
with
on
two
it's on
because it's the
Disney
best.
Plus, right?
Oh yeah.
Two was the best. Yeah,
Hmm.
it felt so epic. It was as if they were the Olympic team. It
Yeah,
was
the
just like
junior Goodwill
junior league
games,
for the
man.
world. Yeah,
Shout out to the junior Goodwill games, man.
yeah. Who knew there was so much money in youth hockey to fly all
Uh,
those foreign teams around?
yeah, yeah.
But hockey was
Uh,
the coolest sport because of the Mighty Ducks.
yeah. I mean, we got
Yeah,
that's the power of Disney. You got the Mighty Ducks are literally a team. You
yeah.
got the Angels, which I think they had to be named from Angels in the Outfield.
No, they had to be a team before that.
Actually, that I'm not sure about. I do know that the Mighty Ducks were after the movie.
Yes.
I do know that.
Yeah, I believe that.
We'll have to get on that and fact check that.
Yeah,
Or
yeah, yeah,
we don't want to be lying to people, so we'll have to edit this part out if that's not factual. But I think
yeah.
that
But I mean, I'm sure the Angels weren't as popular.
absolutely, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. All right, look, let's jump in. We got a little bit of fun we're gonna have on this episode. Um, John Mark, I'm gonna lean on you a little bit. I feel prepared, but perhaps not as prepared as I usually feel for these episodes. But I think it's gonna be
Yeah.
fun. We want to talk about
Yeah.
some music. Racially speaking, there's a lot going on out there in the world.
It's true.
In the music world, some big names are going at it. The big names are being talked about. And look, we want to dive into some of this a little bit. So, John Mark, where do you want to start with all these stories going on right now?
Well, I think we're probably gonna hate on Drake a little bit. We're gonna talk about some Taylor Swift lyrics,
Mm,
and then we're gonna love on Beyonce's country album, right?
okay,
So uh
in
let's
that
let's
order.
start with the yeah, let's start with the Kendrick and Drake beef.
Let's do it.
Yeah. And J.
What
Cole was in there too, but
I was gonna
he's
say,
not
where do you
in
want to
there
start? Do you want
anymore.
to start? So I think we're going to have to
Give a
summarize
synopsis.
for the
Yeah.
people to make sure everyone's on the same page.
Yeah.
Um,
Do you want to give that synopsis
I'll
from
try to.
your
You might be a little more
Yeah,
well
go
versed, but here
for
we
it.
go. Okay, so like you said, let's start back to. I was texting with one of my buddies. I don't know, and again, you might know, so fill in these gaps. How much was brewing before this? But it seemed like the
Hmm.
main catalyst in recent history that people can reach back to, and you don't have to reach back far, is this song. So we got Kendrick Lamar, J. Cole, Drake, all the biggest probably faces, most popular, well known rappers um,
Today. Right.
today in the world right now, and so much that they were dubbed. I forget how
I think
as
it was
the
J.
big
Cole who
three.
called him the Big Three. Yeah, I think J.
Okay, the
Cole
big
in the
three,
song called him the Big
and
Three. Yeah.
yeah, and so that's all kind of been loosely accepted, very loosely, which we'll talk more about in a second, as just truth. Like they're the big three, blah blah blah. Who's better? They're all different and whatnot. Have kind of different backgrounds, cultural
Yeah.
significance.
Yeah.
And then in a song, wasn't even his song. He's featured on it by Future,
Yeah.
another
It's a
artist.
future song.
Kendrick Lamar has a line where he says, we're gonna keep this PC family friendly, but uh, it's not the big three. It's
It's
just
just
big
me.
me. So he says,
Yeah. Yeah.
and, I edited that out, listeners, but it's
Yeah.
just so he's saying, forget these guys, forget J. Cole, forget Drake. It's just me. And it seemed like stuff kind of escalated from that. I know that wasn't the first thing. Like I know that wasn't just out of nowhere necessarily. And
Right.
then I think the timeline goes J. Cole put out, and I forget the name, a short album in response. Oh, delete this. I might delete this.
Yeah. And he
Um,
did delete it.
I can't remember if he's done it.
I'm pretty sure. I'm. Yeah. Anyway, keep going. You're doing
Might
great.
delete late or might delete this. Responding to that, but then the real turning point before it really got going is that he publicly, and I mean publicly, not just online, like he didn't tweet it. He was at a concert, at a big festival on stage, and essentially apologized, quieted the crowd down, and retracted his beef and said, essentially backed out before anyone else could respond. Said, "I regret." I'm paraphrasing. Regret doing this. I love Kendrick. I love my brothers in the industry. I don't essentially backed out. Said, "I don't want any part of this."
Yeah.
It wasn't, in my opinion, necessarily him uh chickening out at that point because no one had really actually responded. But I don't know, maybe it
Right.
was because
Right.
maybe he was afraid and wanted to get ahead of it, which again we can get
Yeah.
to. But okay, so he backed out. It seemed like what I was following, he took a lot of flack for that for people that follow
Yeah, I
rap
heard about
beef
that too.
and like that
Yeah,
are
I heard about
in
that too.
the culture
Because
that
they
are just
just,
like,
I think people just want to see,
yeah.
something blow up. They want to see J. Cole in the middle of it too. But
I mean, they were just like,
I,
"What are you
I don't. He
doing?"
doesn't seem like he's about that, and that's
Mm-hmm.
okay. Like you don't, if he wanted out, I think it's fine. I think it's wise. I mean, these are like 30-something-year-old men, right? Like rapping at each other and insulting each other like they're middle school boys, right? So
It's an
like,
interesting thing because like artistically, I see people's anger a little bit, but as far as uh I feel like he said some things. I don't know if he overtly said it or explicitly said it, but I feel like he was touching on his mental health even a little bit of wanting to take care of himself, not wanting to enter into that. So
mm,
I think, if we're gonna have
that
these
makes
kind of
sense.
conversations about mental health, we
Yeah.
can't crap on him when a man is prioritizing that now.
Right. Right.
Um
Right.
but anyway, we'll get back. I think
And
we'll get back to that.
and based on what Kendrick put out, I think it was probably a good decision,
Yeah, that's what I mean. We'll get to that.
especially for his mental health.
Yeah, yeah. And then you got Drake responds to, so J. Cole's out. Um
Yeah.
Drake responds to Kendrick
Yeah. With a song
with
called Push Ups.
a song called Push Ups. So
Yeah.
uh let's come back into everything, but let's just give a real quick summary. So a song called Push Ups. Kendrick responds with Euphoria.
Yeah.
Drake, I can't remember this part. Actually, that I can't remember
That's
if
right.
Kendrick responded to something first, but when did
Yeah.
Drake put out the like the AI stuff with Tupac and
See,
Snoop?
that I don't know because that before I really started looking into it, that was taken down. So I don't think that's
That's
up
what I thought
anymore.
because he got
Because Tupac was
the
Tupac's,
estate.
estate was like, no, don't do that. So
Yes.
he
Okay. So
took
at
it
some
down.
point,
So
and
you
I
can't
think
get
it
that anymore.
right, and I think it was
Before Euphoria.
before
Okay, I could
Euphoria. I
be right.
think he put out something that had AI voices of Tupac and
Snoop.
Snoop, and he
Yeah,
he used that to kind of diss Kendrick. The Tupac estate came at him for legal reasons, and so they got taken down. All that kind of stuff. There was a lot
that's
of
wild
mixed,
that they can do that today.
yeah,
That's
there's a lot of mixed opinions about Drake doing that in the first place, which again we'll get to. We're just giving you a quick rundown. Drake comes out with Family Matters, and then Kendrick comes out. I mean, it seemed like it, I don't know what you think. It seemed like Kendrick was just ready. He was just like sitting there, like
was sitting on it,
I got
sitting
this
on
in
it.
my
Yeah,
arsenal. It's already recorded.
because
I'll put it out as
that's
soon
what
as you
came
put
out
this
real
out.
fast. It was like
Right.
real fast after
Well,
Family Matters.
he put
He
Family
came out
Matters
with
out, and then he put
Kendrick put out Meet the Grams, right?
Meet the Grams. Oh yeah, yeah. Then
Yeah,
Kendrick put out Meet the Grams, and then put out Not Like
Not
Us
Like Us. Yeah,
back to back.
yeah.
And that is the short summary which we can unpack. But
But
I don't know
also
anyone.
Rick Ross. Rick Ross was in the middle of it.
Yeah.
So in Push Ups, Drake says something about Rick Ross, and then Rick Ross comes out with a song called "Champagne Moments," where he
Mm,
kept referring to him as white boy, which
yeah.
I thought was interesting,
Which
based
racially
on
speaking, we got to unpack a little bit.
because Drake is his mom is white, Canadian
Mm,
Jewish,
yep.
and his dad is black, and he was in the music industry, drummer, and so Rick Ross insulting him,
Mm-hmm.
because I don't think that's how Drake would identify himself. So
Mm-hmm.
insulting hhim, called him white boy, and I also think that plays into maybe some insecurities that Drake has, which we can get into a little bit. But
100%.
Yeah, I feel like that being called that might play into some insecurities. But that's what Rick Ross did. So, and
Mm-hmm.
he just dropped it and he's kind of out. Drake hasn't responded to Rick Ross, or he might have said something about him in another song, but it seems like Rick Ross isn't in it anymore either. So
Yeah,
it's
I mean,
just
if I was
Kendrick
Drake, I wouldn't
and Drake.
respond to anybody right now,
Yeah, me either.
personally.
Yeah, me either.
Um,
But yeah, let's talk about Drake for a little bit. Who
yeah.
he is, right? So he was I knew him first as an actor on Degrassi,
Mm-hmm.
right? He was I think Jimmy was the name of his character. I might be wrong, but he was in a wheelchair, and that's all I remember him as. So he was an actor, and then
Yeah.
he decided to become a rapper. And I feel like I was like around graduating college back when he was starting to get big, so I didn't really like become a fan of his.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so a little bit of my background, I'm from the suburbs. So I'm a suburban black guy, right? So um, a little bit of imposter syndrome when it comes to relating to things from black culture, black communities. I can relate to that, right? So I feel sometimes like because I didn't grow up in predominantly black circles,
You can
that
relate to Drake, to the perception of Drake
I
and
can
what he's
relate to
going through.
not growing up in predominantly black circles. And
Yeah.
so for Drake, when I see him, I saw him. He was a Canadian, half black, half Jewish actor, and then at some point his persona shifted to being a rap slash hip hop uh, a performer, and then now like megastar, right?
Mm-hmm.
And but when I look at him, I'm like Drake, this isn't how you grew up. Like this isn't it feels like he's always performing, always trying to be something that he's not. And so with a song like what Rick Ross said when he kept calling him white, I think it was White Boy
Mm-hmm.
in that song. That I don't know Drake. I don't know how he feels those things, but I could see that being a real struggle for Drake because he shifted who he was publicly, his public persona. So, and I think some of that comes out when with Kendrick too, especially when I think Drake, if he compares himself to Kendrick or J. Cole or Rick Ross or some of these other rappers, I could see him having some insecurities there, and so it comes out. And one of the biggest
Mm-hmm.
things that tells me it's insecurities is some of the stuff he talks about in his first song is he makes fun of Kendrick's height, right?
Yeah.
He
Yeah.
says he wears size 7 shoes.
Uh-huh.
Um, I forget how else he says he's small, but I'm just like that is like the lamest like good for
Mm-hmm.
you, you're taller than him. Like
Yeah.
come on, let's be a little bit more clever. And that I think gets to the root of why I don't really like Drake that much. I just don't think he's got very good lyrics. I think he's got some good uh maybe some good beats, some good music, but I can't stand it. It feels like he's always bragging, always trying to build himself up. Um always trying to prove himself, and I'm just like, it's not for me. So anyway, that's a little bit about Drake and his background. I think his insecurities are coming out as he is going after Kendrick.
Yeah, that's interesting. So, you're saying you kind of always felt that about him? Because so my background,
Yeah,
I didn't watch Degrassi. I
yeah.
didn't.
I didn't really either. I guess
Okay,
I
yeah,
did
yeah.
enough to know.
Sure. I mean, well, you know more than me. So
Yeah.
my perception is interesting, and I can't claim to be a. I've noticed this whole um, narrative by listening to his music necessarily. It's been much more seeing interviews or seeing his adjacency and
Mm-hmm.
relevance in the NBA world. Because
Mm.
he's a big, because he's Canadian, he's a huge Raptors fan, and
Raptors.
he's
Yeah.
right, and he's around, and he's been tight in and out with a lot of the NBA players. So I follow the NBA religiously and all that kind of stuff. But just the things I've seen of him, I've never cared about him. Is what I'll say. I've never
Mm-hmm.
been a fan of him, and I know hindsight can be 2020, but my perception has always been kind of what you're saying though, without even really listening to much of his music. Stuff like
Yeah.
his biggest hits, I've just been like, huh, that guy's like a popular,
Poppy. Pop. Yeah.
popular, poppy
He's
artist. I wouldn't even consider him like I legitimately didn't really ever consider him
a
like a
rap
J.
artist.
Cole or like a
Yeah.
Kendrick or any of those guys. Even I get
No, he
almost
doesn't.
I just accepted that he was accepted as that by most people
Yeah.
because I am not, up to snuff with everything that's
Yeah.
going on in the culture. I'm
He's
like, I don't see it that way. But so
yeah.
it's been interesting seeing. So then listening to Kendrick and Rick Ross like go at him with this, I'm like, oh, that okay. Other people within the culture
Seem like that.
did know that, and they are
Yeah.
really putting him on notice now.
He's more like Bruno Mars. Like in my mind, I put him in a category with
Okay.
like Bruno Mars. Not I mean I like Bruno Mars better, but just
Uh-huh.
like you said pop, like Pitbull, right? So I'm not putting him in like categories with other like big name rappers. To me, he's more of a pop guy.
Yeah.
Um
Yeah, like you don't mean that as an insult. Like he's a Bruno Mars
yeah.
because just that's like the category falls in, not because
Yeah,
Bruno
right.
Mars isn't
Yeah.
good or
Like
yeah.
or like Jason Derulo,
Yeah.
like not Jay Z, right? So like
Right.
Kendrick hangs with Jay Z,
Right.
or he did the Super Bowl with uh come on, Dr. Dre Day. He was
Yeah.
one of the guests. He was with Eminem, 50 Cent, Dr. Dre, Mary J. Blige, and when he came out, I was like, yeah, that works. But I could never
Never see
see
Drake out there.
Drake
Right.
with that group,
Mhm.
or any other of those older rap artists either. I couldn't. I don't think I could see that. But he does rap, so. But it just feels more poppy to me. Yeah,
Right. I think we should pull up some lyrics, but I think the you said insecurity
yeah,
and kind of the things that Kendrick and Rick Ross were poking at were
yeah,
I feel like those insecurities
yeah.
and
It got personal.
I think that yeah, I mean it got
Personal.
beyond personal. I was texting my buddy and I got some of this from listening to Higher Learning podcast, but they were Van Lathan, he's another podcast host and a critic, but he was saying, and I think this sums it up. So, okay, we can get into some of this, but Kendrick and Drake both going back and forth, insinuated and downright accused each other of some real bad stuff. Like even alluded
Yeah,
to, like I say, so Kendrick's song is Euphoria. I've seen that that's even a purposeful title because the show Euphoria starring Zendaya on HBO. I've never watched it, but I've heard a lot of it is about sexualizing high school aged girls. Maybe not about that, but that's what happens, and that
yeah,
Drake
yep,
is a producer of it. There's also some alleged stuff that he's. I would have no reason to believe any of this is true because I've never heard it, and so I don't feel any which way. But there's a lot of stuff out there that it seemed like could be backed up by other people. That he's got some shady stuff alleged of having gone on with underage women, all this kind of stuff. So they got real personal.
yeah.
Um, and Drake, I think, semi accused Kendrick of uh, what do you call it?
Abuse,
Abuse, domestic abuse. Yeah, his wife. They
domestic violence.
they
Yeah,
both
beating his wife.
brought each other's families
Yeah,
into it. Kendrick does a
yeah.
whole
It wasn't
song
good.
about Drake's like family.
Yes, where he
So
specifically talks to his family members.
yeah, I mean list by
I
list, like
got some.
6 minutes
Yeah,
on his family.
here's some lyrics from Euphoria,
Yeah,
which
go
I
for it.
didn't know that about the show, but that makes a lot of sense.
Mm-hmm.
Um, let's see. He says, this is Kendrick. He says, I make music that electrify them. You make music that pacify them. I can double down on that line, but spare you this time. That's random acts of kindness. So
Yeah.
that line about pacify them,
Mm-hmm.
and as he's talking about underage um, girls that Drake might be attracted to. That line got me. I was working out in the gym
Uh-huh.
and I just had to pause and I was just laughing at that. But it's a pretty big accusation of what Drake is accused of.
Well, even in the first couple seconds of the song, I think like 8 seconds in, I'm looking on. Say what you brought up. The famous actor we once knew was looking paranoid and now spiraling. I feel like that alludes to his time as an actor, and that even back then people because he's there, and then later I think it's in Not Like Us by Kendrick. Listeners, as you're following, he says something. It's not just me. I speak for the whole culture. Like we are onto you, and you're not. It's called Not Like Us. He's essentially,
Yeah.
to sum it up, why I think people are like, oh man, Drake is done, Kendrick definitely won, whatever this was, is because they both got so personal and accuse each other and insinuate a bunch of not good things. But I think if we're saying who won or whatever, and I know some people might not even like look at rap beef as something that you win, but go with us. I think, and I wonder what you think, John Mark. I think that Kendrick pressed so much into these paranoia things
Yeah.
and essentially othered him out of the culture in a way that I texted my friend this. I was like,
Yeah.
in a way that's just unassailable now. And it's
Yeah.
almost like no one actually cares about what's true or not, because it's just like people are too much. It's not people just in the last week when this has been going on, been like, oh, yeah, let's just jump on this bandwagon. It's people being like, yes, I've thought this whole time. Finally,
Yeah.
people are saying
About
it. Like,
Drake.
let's like
Yeah.
get rid of Drake.
Yeah. Part of it, I think, is that he's from Canada, which
Mm-hmm.
I feel kind of bad about that because
Yeah.
it
Well,
reeks of nationalism,
mm-hmm.
American centrism. Like,
Okay, let's
we do
unpack
have a
this though.
lot of.
Yeah, let's
Go
unpack this
ahead.
because I think so. Racially speaking, on this podcast, we got to talk about this. So, I think musically, I'd agree with what we talked about. The popular opinion being like musically, technically. I was texting my buddy about this too. I was like, look, I mean, Drake probably shouldn't have gotten into this. He should have pulled a J. Cole and got out of there, because Kendrick was always going to win this. If you're going to go to
Lyrically,
battle with him, like lyrically, he was
absolutely.
always
Yeah.
going to destroy
It's
Drake.
different
That's just
classes.
facts.
Yeah,
Like it's not
absolutely.
even kind of close.
Absolutely. Drake called him short. That's like the worst insult.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, I think that Drake at some points, not overall, but like at some points, may have technically like rapped a little better, and it was like that he could have. He
Mhm.
again, he's a good artist. He's a poppy artist, and like some of it was
He
like
is.
even catchier.
Yep.
Kendrick is not
Yep.
known for being the most palatable listen all the time. Like no one's ever
Yeah.
said that that he was that. But so I think we give the W to Kendrick. But I wanted to ask you, and let's talk about this a little bit. Are the things that Kendrick is saying about Drake, and accepted or not, are they fair? Are they problematic? Like where do you
Mhm.
stand on some of these things? You brought up the nationalism thing.
Yeah.
Is it at all fair that he's essentially pointing out his uh Canadianness and having that be
Yeah.
an insult?
Yeah. So I think it's fair for Kendrick to go after him like this. I think it's fair for them to go after each other in a rap battle. I don't. As far as I don't know what scale am I measuring by. As far as the industry goes, famous people, Hollywood, all of that. As far as that goes, I think it's fair. It happens. I don't think it's out of bounds based on whatever cultural norms that group has. Right. I mean, but in the same way, when Will Smith slapped Chris Rock,
Mm-hmm.
um, it's not good when there's infighting in a group that I wish would support each other and push the culture in positive directions, right? So they're both rap artists, hip hop artists. They're both loved by Black communities and Black culture. I wish that this didn't happen, right? I'm not, I wish that they could support each other, work together. And I know, like, it's the persona. Like everyone in rap needs to be a rap god, or the king, or I don't know, the big three, whatever they're calling each other, right? I know that that's part of the persona that they put on, but um, uh, especially Kendrick's, he is also about lifting up the culture and lifting others up, and this is
Mm-hmm.
the opposite of that. So it's kind of like he was brought low to a lower level because he responded to Drake, or he got into this with Drake. And so I think the insults, like he said something about Tommy Hilfiger stood out, but Fubu never had been your collection. So talking about how
Yeah.
Forest Bias, that clothing brand, was never in Drake's clothes. And I don't know. I feel like there's enough pressure on black people in the world where it's like, you need to be like this, not like this. This is how black is defined, and not like that. That when Kendrick, who has such a voice in
Hmm.
black culture right now, comes after Drake like this, I feel like it hurts other people who might identify as biracial or mixed, or black American and white Canadian or Jewish Canadian.
Yeah.
So it kind of hurt when people fight like this. I feel like everyone is not made better. Everyone might possibly be made worse
Hmm.
for something like this, right? And then to add to the broader community, us viewing it now, we're looking at it and we're like, yeah, that's true about Drake. He is Canadian. It's like
Yeah.
that's not bad, right? That's who he is. And I don't want us as society to go after people because of their ethnic or cultural identity, right? And I
Hmm.
don't want us to label people as lesser, whether that's because they are connected more to a majority culture or dominant culture, or if they're connected more to a ethnic minority culture or subdominant culture, right? I want people to embrace each other's culture, and let people just be who they are, right? So I
Yeah.
wish Drake didn't have to put up a front that he was some type of, great black leader, black artist. I wish he could just kind of be his, Degrassi self, and also put
Yeah.
out music that people love, So
Okay. Well,
yeah,
I don't know if this is pushback, but it might feel a little bit like that at first. So I'm
please,
not.
please.
I'm not the black man on the show right now, so I want to ask you this stuff. So like, I think what I would assume like some pushback on this would be. I feel like you're getting there at towards the end of that, but I think that Drake was. I think that this is happening now because I feel like he's shifted, and I feel like early on in his career, he was a lot more self aware and was at least
Mm,
giving that perception. And so he was being Drake. Like he was being him. He wasn't acting all
right.
hard and like,
Yeah.
like you said, like fitting that rapper stereotype
Right.
and trying to be something he's not. And so I think the pushback to even your Chris Rock, Will Smith example is I think people are saying, no, 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 like Drake was never this. So we're not going to let him be. So like,
Hmm.
I don't personally look at that as the same kind of comparison because I feel like a Will Smith and a Chris Rock, like I don't think either of them are Drake
Mm,
in that scenario. I don't think like I feel like both of them
yeah. Well, I
were
said that
absolute
because
were
they're both
staples.
famous. They're famous
Right,
black
right,
men.
right,
They're big, and he is a huge artist name, and he's also black, right? So that's why I say that.
right, right. I feel like just people's pushback would be, well, we're not. It's not the same as even like if it was strictly between J. Cole and Kendrick, would I feel it would be super different. Like it
Different,
would
yeah,
be because they're both accepted in a different way, and I feel like have also demonstrated
yeah,
at different times that they have the black community's back. They're going to speak up for
yeah,
stuff, and I feel like Drake's taken a lot of, I think, fair
yeah,
flack for being silent at times where the black community could have used him
yeah,
speaking up about
yeah,
some stuff, and
yeah.
it's like, oh wait, you're not really for us, and on top of
I
that,
feel you.
you care about writing bops and being a big pop culture person, and you're
Yeah,
gonna you're gonna vacillate back and forth whichever way makes your name bigger at the expense of our community, when I think Kendrick is much more viewed as you're in this through thick and
yeah,
thin, and same probably with J. Cole. So I think that's
yeah,
people's pushback are like, nah, get this guy out of here, like
yeah.
amening
That
Kendrick's words.
yeah. That would be
What do you
different.
think?
Yeah. I think I agree. I see what you're saying. Yeah, that would be different. Yeah. I think my comparison between, it's just that um, they're both black men. They're both black artists, big black names. But you're right. You're right. I feel like for Kendrick and J. Cole, I don't know much about J. Cole's background, um, but for them, I think their only community is the black community. Only culture is the black culture,
Right.
right? That's they came from. But Drake is connected to, right? He's got this dual culture, these two worlds that he lives in, and he's Canadian. So
Right.
so I feel like it is different. You're right, it is different in that. Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah, okay. So yeah, bring up the Canadian thing. I forgot. I got sidetracked, but I think that it's different. Do I think we should target people for not being American? Absolutely, like obviously not. No, like that
Yeah.
on itself. If that's all we're doing here, like Drake is lesser because he's a Black Canadian or half Black Canadian. He's a lesser artist or lesser Black person. Like, no, I don't think. I'm not encouraging that. I think probably what most people are doing in this instance, I think, are, well, stop acting like you're not all these things and we won't bring it up, almost, because I feel
Yeah.
like he's trying
Yeah.
to act like he's
Yeah.
not Canadian or he didn't come from the background that we all know he came
Yeah,
from, and
it's
he's
true.
acting like
It's
he's,
true.
from
Who knows
Compton and
where?
all this stuff. Like he's using
Yeah.
Tupac lyrics. Like I think people
The
were
streets
pissed
of
that they used,
Toronto. Yeah.
yeah, people were pissed that they used Tupac
Yeah,
in
he's
there. Like,
wild. It does.
like
it feels like cultural appropriation
right,
when he
like the
does that stuff.
audacity to do that. I'm like, oh my gosh,
He
what are you
doesn't have
doing?
to, and the
Yeah,
truth is, he's big enough that he doesn't have to. The other
exactly.
thing that got me that was so funny, he talked about how Kendrick's um, first number one was on a Taylor Swift song. He was
Yeah.
featured on a Taylor Swift song, and
Mhm.
I was like, Drake, do you think we forgot that commercial you did where you were at the gym and he
Yeah.
was dancing to Taylor Swift lyrics and she was
Mhm.
dancing to Drake lyrics and they were like
Yeah.
working out at separate gyms, and I'm like you do it too. You did it more, like like
Again, it's
so that's
so,
just
yeah,
wild.
it's so interesting because I think that's another thing of like, I, I don't think Drake is his intention is even to hide that he did that. It's just
Yeah,
stop pointing out things, just be yourself like that. So it's like a slippery
yeah,
slope. Once he stopped being himself, maybe there's a bigger, wider lesson in here of, once you stop being yourself, it's downhill when you're in the public eye, especially because people are going to see through that. And I think that's what's happening here. And I mean, Kendrick just exposed him beyond repair.
yeah.
I think,
It's not great. It's not great. I
his
mean, I
career is
think
going to
his
be
fans.
fine, but
I think his fans will still be his fans. I don't
right.
know the cross section of Drake fans and Kendrick fans. Like, I think his. I'm sure he's got a huge fan base that they'll be fine. He'll be fine.
He'll be fine career wise, but
Yeah,
Kendrick, I think all but assured he'll never go down the road that he was trying to go down. I think Kendrick put a big
yeah,
sign up there of like, you're not coming down any further.
yeah,
He'll never
yeah,
be accepted in the way that Kendrick is. I think that was Kendrick's main goal.
yeah,
Again,
yeah. I think that's
unassailable.
true.
Yeah.
That's true. That's true. Yeah,
I think we'd agree there are some problematic things in maybe like who's accepted into different, into the culture,
yeah,
stuff like that. But I think it's important to understand the context of why these issues exist. And I mean, I won't lie. Like, again, as a non-black person in this conversation, even I'm like, I understand kind of the um unappeal of a Drake. Like, there's nothing worse than like faking your way into a culture that's built so much on
yeah,
like sacredness and solidarity, and it's just like people are
yeah.
gonna see through that, man. It feels
And the
icky.
sad thing is, with a little bit of humility, I don't think he would have to fake his way into it.
Right.
Like the black experience, the black culture in America, and even America's top hat is it's embracing anyone who has a connection to being black is considered black and can be welcomed home. But
Hmm.
it takes some humility to enter in, especially in the conversations that you don't know directly, right? And you need to ask questions, you need to learn. And I don't feel like Drake took the time to learn the culture and value the culture, respect the culture. I mean, he got famous from a very young age. That's probably some of why he's kind of weird with younger adults, maybe not adults, you know. And
Yeah.
I feel like if he had come in with humility instead of thinking he's the best, he gets to drive things, he changes the culture, he drives the culture, then he might be accepted differently. And Kendrick might not have just completely barred his way into acceptance and to the best black rappers. So
Yeah. Right.
yeah,
Right. Right.
yeah.
All right. I'll- you had a great segue a couple minutes ago when we brought
Taylor
up,
Swift.
yeah, yeah, and you're again not just the black man on this show and in this conversation, but you're the resident Swifty in this
I
conversation as
am.
well. I'm
I
married to
am.
one.
That's good. She
But
has good taste in music.
you're the resident Swifty on here. So again, I'm gonna
Yeah.
keep volleying over to you. But let's talk about the Taylor Swift. Um, if you don't know
Tortured
this,
Poet
Tortured
Society.
Poet Society newest
Yeah.
double album. A
Yep.
lot. Okay, so a lot to talk about because we haven't really talked about her at all.
No, we
Um,
haven't.
here on the show, racially speaking, there's a lot to talk about with her music, her um former boyfriends,
Yeah.
perception over
So
her long, illustrious career.
yes,
Lots to
as
unpack
a
here.
Swifty,
Yeah.
and it really became a Swifty when in 2020 when she released um, Folklore.
Hmm. Great
I
album.
loved that album like immediately. I was like, this is one of the best albums ever, and so I became a Swifty, and I've been a Swifty since. I liked some of her music before; it was fun. I've even gone back and listened to it some since, but Folklore is what did it for me,
Hmm.
and I've followed her since. But um, I've often wondered this: does Taylor Swift have any black friends?
Okay, so we're just jumping in. We're just jumping all the way in.
that's what that's what I
Yeah.
wondered, right? And I feel like you were about to bring up her ex. I don't know if he was ever a boyfriend, but fling
Hmm. Hmm.
guy was it? What's his name?
Maddie
I'm a
Healy.
Swifty, but I did not. Matt Healy, Maddie
Matt, I
Healy.
think he goes. Yeah, he goes by Maddie Healy, but yeah.
I did not pay attention to that because
Hmm.
again, I'll let you explain that, and then I'll say what I said again.
Okay, well, yeah.
So
So a lot to unpack here. So yeah, nearly all of my Taylor Swift knowledge. Okay, so I have no actual like I like Taylor Swift like as an artist, musician. Think she's fantastic. Like she is an amazing artist. Yeah, my wife went to the Airs tour. Is literally before we came
that's
down here, she
awesome.
was showing me TikToks of what she's doing in Paris right now, with having added in some of the Torture Poet Society. Did I say that
Yeah,
wrong?
and that
Yeah,
was called.
Society.
Yeah,
Added that part to the Airs tour over in Europe, all this kind of stuff. Literally, I was like, all right, I'm going to record John Mark.
Tortured Poets Department. We can say
Department. I
that
was like,
right.
it's not Society. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
Department.
you're right. It's the
So
department.
there,
I
I'm
said it wrong.
showing I'm obviously not a Swifty. So all that's going on. So I know a lot about Taylor Swift. I'm not trying to be defensive or anything, but I also don't want to be a poser. So I know a good amount, but it's because I'm married to a Swifty through and through. I like your music, but yes, I do. As you can imagine, listeners and John Mark have some critiques of some of her perceptions, some of her relationship choices, some of her silence on some things in comparison to things she's been pretty outspoken about over a career that, again, we're going to be consistent here. When crap hits the fan, has been noticeably silent. Maddie Healy, you brought up. Um, and you also asked, often wondered, does she have any black friends? I think that's a great question. With kind of the vibe she can give off at times. But okay, I'm getting sidetracked. Matty Healy, I never knew who he was until this was brought up, but he's the lead singer of a band called the 1975 or the 1975s. Fairly well known band. I'd never heard of them. Whatever.
Never heard of it.
But he
I still hadn't
is
heard of it.
right. He's still. I couldn't tell you anything about them or songs other than Matty Healy. He is known for doing like Nazi salutes, like on I
Yeah,
think on stage. He's known for being like a contrarian. Like I think he's a famous quote by him is that he is, I'll paraphrase, um, purposely says controversial things to get attention. Okay, so
yeah,
that's okay, and that on its face is not the worst thing I've ever heard. But the Nazi salute thing, not good, very bad. And then has said some things specifically in recent years about artist Ice Spice, who's tight with Taylor Swift as well. Called
hmm
her, I think,
after. So I do know this much. I think
okay,
they got
chubby
tight
Chinese lady.
after. Is that what he said about her?
Yeah,
That's terrible.
chubby Chinese lady. What else was it? And then one of the big things is that he was on, and this surfaced after there was word about them dating. there was rumors about them having dated in 2014 and then just recently again. And I don't think it was ever confirmed until this latest album. It seemed like, yeah, it was. But anyway, he was not caught, but it resurfaced a podcast interview. The podcast was called, what was it called again? The Adam Friedland Show. Come Down. Yeah, I guess I can say that on here. Unscripted comedy podcast that gained internet fame and notoriety through heavy use of ironic bigotry, echoing the humor of South Park. And he's on there saying how he gets off from watching this pornographic site where black women are brutalized. So really terrible stuff. Not a good dude. There's several other things. Yeah, this chubby Chinese lady, Ice Spice, referred to her as an Inuit Spice Girl. Real,
terrible.
Obviously terrible things, but also
yeah,
people were upset that Taylor Swift wasn't speaking up about it or giving any kind of clarity of why she would be publicly in relationship with this person, knowing the stuff she, I'm doing air quotes, stands for. Speaking of the marginalized, the black community, you know, even LGBTQ communities, stuff like that. So not a good dude. Not a good dude. And racially speaking, that's got obviously racial implications that I think were just really problematic. Seems to be really good friends with Ice Spice. I personally do not like, and I get it, this is a sticky thing because I struggle with, okay, what do public figures owe us? I struggle with how upfront she is about a lot of things and never really addressed this until writing about it in the music she releases, and that's all. Like, that's it. When it's really serious, problematic things. Yeah.
What things is she public about?
She's just been a really outspoken, like an outspoken activist, and I think about just I mean, wanting to be on the right side of all the issues and activism. I know she was really big in so 2020 speaking up for women and women's rights, and then I know she's taken a lot of criticism for being silent at those times. She's been really public about advocacy for the LGBTQ plus community. I don't know if she's been, to be fair, hugely outspoken about, you know, BLM over, you know, since 2020 or and that and whatnot. But she's very much put herself wanting to be on the right side of all of those issues, and then it seems like when something like, you know, dating Matt Healy, it was very, I keep saying icky, but it felt like, this seems like a lob over the plate to address what's going on. That's never sat well with me. I didn't like that there was that, like, literally public, like, knowledge that he had said those things about Ice Spice, who literally was collaborating with Taylor Swift at the time, released like a whole video, like music video with her in it and stuff like that. I don't claim to know all the timelines and everything of like when stuff's released in music and stuff, but I feel like some of that was a little bit sidesteppy, disingenuous, which all that is fine, but it brings me to kind of your kind of question of, I literally asked two of my black friends the other day, because we were talking about music, and I was like, serious question, y'all, because I've been like asking this, or like thinking about this a little bit. I was like, do black people like Taylor Swift, just to paint with broad strokes? And at least these two people were like, none of my friends do, including me. I was like, all right, that's just interesting to me. Obviously, I know they don't speak for everybody. They know that too. But what do you think? Because it's interesting to me that you brought up that sentiment.
I don't think she has. I don't think I like her because I'm black or because she has anything to contribute to the black culture or in any way cares about.
Jamar Tisby's a Swiftie.
Yeah, he's a fan. Like I enjoy her music, but I don't think that she particularly cares for black people. And
Mm-hmm.
when I ask that question, does Taylor Swift have any black friends? That's not to condemn somebody who's white who doesn't have black friends. Like, everybody who's white can have black friends. That would mean that every black person would have what, like 500 friends, right? So it's just the numbers. It's just not possible. so so
Yeah.
and even in asking that, I'm like, I think the deeper question is, does Taylor Swift value people who are culturally different, ethnically different than her, or people who
Mm-hmm.
have been oppressed or marginalized? Is she aware of that? Does she care that those things happened? Does she care for those people's stories? That's the real question: is what's
Mm-hmm.
the level of her care? And I think even in dating that Maddie Healy guy, um, I think some of the controversy was like, we don't know. She's not very open about controversial things, so we don't know what her actual private life is like, what she actually cares about. Does she actually care for people at all? Does she have any real friends? Like, we don't know these things about Taylor Swift.
Yeah.
Um, so it's a big question mark because I don't see her in public appearances with black people who run in the same sphere as her. I see her with white people who run in the same level of celebrity as her.
Mm-hmm.
But that doesn't mean that she doesn't care, right? And that doesn't mean that she actually doesn't have black friends. So that's why I'm asking that question. It's like, what is the actual nature of her care for people, right? And people who are ethnically, culturally different than hers.
Yeah.
One way of seeing that is if white people have black friends, right? So
Mm-hmm.
um, yeah, that's why I asked that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Again, I think it's interesting. I think it's also completely fair to say, does it does it even matter? It matters to somebody
yeah,
like me, but I'm kind of crazy sometimes. But uh, like, are is it fair? I talked to Alethea about this on a previous episode, but is it should we be expecting people in the public eye, specifically musical artists, to be activists or to
yeah,
be even as a person about what they sing about? I need to know
yeah.
more Taylor Swift lyrics. I don't know if you have any, but that would show
Uh,
that she should be about some of these things.
Well, I think
Um,
we're about to talk about one of her lyrics. That's the closest
right.
I think I've ever heard her care about anything like this. So
Hmm.
we'll get to that. But to your question, should we care? I think that depends on you. I think that's a personal thing. Like how much do we care about our actual friends and the people who are actually in our community that we run into every day, and those relationships. Like, how much do we care if they're activists? To what level they're activists? To what degree do they care and dedicate parts of their life to making the world better for others who are oppressed, less fortunate, whatever you want to say it. How much do we actually care if those around us who we actually
Yeah.
know are activists, right? And then to the same degree, celebrities, because they're people too, and they have, they can make choices on what they want to use their platform for and what they don't. And um, I honestly don't think Taylor Swift uses her platform much for anything. Like we said, a little bit for women's rights, but also her fan base is like three generations long, right, of
Yeah.
women, right? That's her fan base. So if she didn't speak about women's rights, that would be weird, right? Her fan
I
base is not, black culture, black community, but it's women.
yeah, I
So
think okay, I think you bring up the crux of where some of my angst would be. And my wife's gonna hate to listen to this part, but I've had these conversations with her. But I always care about, this, John Mark. I care about consistency. So I think, to me, the only indictment that I think is fair. Actually, I've talked to Kaylin about this. She thinks this too, and I think it's okay to think this and still love her. Like, that's fine.
mm-hmm.
You just got to be fair. Like, even like we were talking about Drake, like, just be yourself, be honest, and like that gets you so much further than faking something. So to me, she was like accepting awards and like using that platform. To counter your argument a little bit, I'll say, like, it's because she has been super outspoken about specifically women's rights.
Hmm.
As a woman, like her whole thing with, even how she's re-releasing all of her music to get her, like, that's a women's, like, under the umbrella of women's rights and women being marginalized,
Yeah.
which is absolutely like an admirable thing and something she should do. I'm completely behind this. Great. So to
Yeah.
me, it's her silence on some issues, and it's a slippery slope. I'm not saying she has to be outspoken about every single thing, but for there to be, and then a Matt Healy situation come up and be like, wait, what? This seems like a softball, like over the plate. For there to be crickets about something so egregious, I think is completely fair. And I think a lot of Swifties feel this way. I'm not saying that Swifties are purely cult following and don't think this at all. I
Yeah.
just think it's completely fair to critique and be like, wait, where's the uproar about this stuff that seems pretty easy
Yeah.
to condemn. And so to me,
Yeah.
that's I don't like inconsistency. So like your question even about people around us, like friends and stuff, I've done a lot and consistently do a lot of self-reflection. Again, this, John Mark, like I have a very high bar, in some regard too high, like too unrealistic expectations of people in general when it comes to some of this. I'm like,
Yeah.
I
Well, no,
want someone else to think like I do, like all this stuff. But so it
I
helps
would
me.
I would say
You go ahead.
you are consistent. You're consistent. Like in saying that, I wasn't saying that about you. I think you are consistent in that you care about the people around you and the values that they hold in caring for others in real tangible ways and speaking out about things. Right.
Mm,
So it makes total sense that you would have that same standard for celebrities that you look up to who speak on other issues. Right. So, and that's good. I think that's good. Like I love that about you. I think that's a great way to live. I respect that about you so much. So yeah, it
it's
makes
a
total
way.
sense that you would look at Taylor Swift. And I wouldn't say it's too much. I don't think you have too high of a bar. I wouldn't say that. Um, I just think it's your bar. That's your measurement. So you're authentic in who you are and what you value, and you value that for those who you're in community with too. And I think I don't think that's a bad thing. I think it's a good thing. So
I have trouble giving. I think I received that. I have trouble giving the patience and grace to people that I would have wanted for me
mm,
at different times.
hmm
And I acknowledge that. I try to own that. But I also am just averse to, I can't think of the word, really turned off and averse to a lack of solidarity when it's easy, I think, and a lack of, yeah, I mean consistency.
hmm
Like I don't like feeling like I don't know where people stand on basic things.
hmm
And I have trouble getting around that is my problem. I've talked to you about that.
yeah,
Like, you know what I mean? So like I shouldn't there's certain things I should not have to wonder how people around me feel, even if, and sometimes especially if they're people that are supposed to be closest to me. And
hmm hmm
I think that can be muddy because that also
yeah,
breeds like, well, then I can be very lacking in compassion, but also I have trouble getting past like, but why is this at my expense when it's
yeah,
ignorance and things that are really, really, really basic here. I'll give you like an
yeah,
example from the famous artist perspective. So even somebody like when I talk about consistency, I think about like a Jay-Z. Like we should all go on the other side of things, like a Jay-Z or an Ice Cube, even. Like those guys are like well known, like their entire ethos. Like an Ice Cube is like synonymous with Straight Outta Compton and F the
yeah,
police and all this kind of stuff.
yeah,
I'm
yeah,
not going to go
yeah,
down that rabbit trail of like all those lyrics, but the entire ethos of like Straight Outta Compton is like is about police brutality and like drawing awareness
yeah,
to that um in their area. And just recently, I know, people change, but like that is like who what his career is built on, is drawing
yeah.
awareness to those issues. And you can think what you want about it, but like just recently he was in an interview with Tucker Carlson, and
It's
Tucker
so
Carlson
terrible.
asks, which is problematic to begin
Oh,
with.
it's
I
so
think I
wild.
think there's a way to have those conversations that can be a conversation for another time, but you got to be prepared to know how to have them. and not let people skate
Mm-hmm.
by. So like he is like a drive around on a YouTube show with Tucker Carlson. Tucker Carlson asked him pretty much about like, what do you think about the state of policing? And Ice Cube all but retracts stuff that's like, wait, that's what you've like staked your entire career on,
Yeah.
and essentially butchered. I don't know if he butchered if he would say it, or if he was just like,
Well,
yeah, that's what I think. That he essentially said like he empathized with police. And again, I'm not.
I
My
wonder
point
if
is
he
not to
felt. I
crap on
wonder if he felt
police.
like. I wonder if he felt like he grew up. Not to defend him, but it does seem like an inconsistency with who he was before as a very young man to who he
Yeah,
is
and
now.
I don't think
I
he
wonder
should.
if. I wonder if he the fame, the wealth. Uh, people get more conservative as they age too. So I wonder if that. But I hear what you're saying, right? He set a standard for himself, and then at some point he went against that standard and defended the
Yeah,
opposite. And so now he's saying hug the police, where before he was saying, F the police, right? And it's like it seems like this double standard that he's living by. And then I think you mentioned Jay-Z too, right?
yeah.
With
Which I've
I,
unpacked his tie to the NFL and stuff.
NFL, right?
Yeah,
NFL and the exploitation of black boys all the
lots
way
of
up to men,
exploitation.
right?
Yeah,
Um, from the NFL, and how is he going to go and produce their halftime show
mm-hmm.
and still be about the people? But I think we talked about it a little bit. Jay-Z has always been about Jay-Z, right? So he's a
Right,
little bit about the culture and for the culture. He came from the culture, so he can't leave the culture. But Jay-Z has also been about Jay-Z, and
right. And what we mean
yeah,
by that,
go
again,
ahead.
I was gonna say, just if people haven't listened to my conversation with Alethea, but what we mean is like it. Literally, I'm asking like, should we hold these people to these standards? Because I'm not saying people can't change or
Yeah,
necessarily shouldn't change, but to me, there hasn't been a. It's not like Ice Cube has come out and said. It's not like he's Candace Owens and like has said like, oh yeah, I'd retract everything I'm saying. It was just like a subtle like, wait,
yeah,
that sounds like you're just
yeah,
an unawareness of, do you know how those words are now going to affect like the
yeah.
communities you spent your whole life, like your whole musical career speaking up for, like for
Yeah, I
you
mean,
to
he said
say
out of
that.
Compton for a reason. He's not in Compton anymore. The
Right,
police are
like
nicer out there.
for
That's
you
a
to
joke.
say that.
I'm joking.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I just think it's like, dude, what is happening, man? And to who he's saying
yeah,
it to, like it's just
yeah,
to
yeah,
me, and through a different lens, that's kind of unforgivable with
yeah.
culturally, like of like, what are you doing, man? And then with Jay
And I feel like
Z,
that's okay. Yeah, for you to hold that
yeah,
view, that standard,
that's
I think that's
inconsistent.
good. You, you're consistent, and that's
Yeah, yeah,
okay, right? They're inconsistent, and
right.
that's what you have a hard time with. And you value consistency. And I think that's a good value to have. I think similarly to Jay Z, I think Taylor Swift is about what's best for the brand, her
Yeah,
brand,
that's our other
right?
critique. And again,
I think she's so driven by
mhm,
her success, right? And I mean, you even said like she's re-recording her music so that she owns the rights to it, right?
mhm,
And I think she's such a boss. Like I respect that move
yeah,
so much. It's like petty, and it's like it's good for her to own her music. Like I don't want to support somebody who stole from her, right? As a Swiftie, but
right,
Taylor Swift is about what's best for her fans and her brand. And I think even this Matt Healy guy, he wasn't best for her brand, right? I think all the boyfriends that she's had, like I'm sure she
yeah,
likes them at a personal level, but also she like what she said herself, she's a mastermind and she's been planning this
mhm,
the whole time, right? I think we should take her at her words, right? So I don't
mhm,
expect to see her come out in favor of any activist stand that isn't for her brand, that isn't good for her brand, that betters her brand, right? So like I mean she could speak about um, what's going on in Gaza, right? But she's not going to do that. She could speak about BLM, but she's not going to do that
mhm.
because she came from white culture, white community, country
So yeah,
music to be a pop star, and her fan base is white women from the age of 10 to like 50, right? So that's who she reaches out to, and a lot of them are also like white evangelical adjacent, right? And so
mhm,
like there's also like fans who listen to contemporary Christian music, and then like also Taylor Swift, and then also country music, right? So there's a lot of issues that she's not going to touch, because if she were to press into those things, then it would come back and it would hurt her brand and her success, right? So, and I'm saying this, I'm not trying to pass judgment on her, whether good or bad, one way or the other. I just think she is a brand, and that is how she's going to operate. She's going to be about what's best for her brand, right? So,
Mhm.
yeah,
It's just an interesting conversation.
it is.
And I
It
need to
is.
get on the phone. Former guest and friend John Kabongo is a up and coming, actually ironically Toronto rapper. He used to go to Virginia Tech and play ball,
Yeah.
and he's man, he's amazing. But I had a text conversation going on with him. He's blowing up. He's doing big things. So he doesn't have time to come on here again. But he's like, give me a call and we'll chat about this. But I've asked him these questions of like, is it um I haven't talked to him much since this beef, so it'd be interesting to hear his perspective too, literally from Toronto. Um, and he's a huge Kendrick fan. But anyway, I just I think it's interesting specifically with musical artists because are they all just capitalists and should we just take them at that like you're saying? And again, I
Mm,
just think the consistency is so interesting because like an Ice Cube. I do, but like I'm saying this kind of tongue in cheek, but like, was all that music just to make money? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like that music was cool. People loved and appropriated even. Like people loved NWA, straight out of Compton. Like they loved like what that signifies and like the whole statistics of like white suburban people are the biggest demographic that listen to rap music. Like, was it just to sell music? Because now you fast forward and it's like it wasn't like he was a big activist. He was a musical
right.
artist, and so are we
Right.
just? Did we have a false perception of like that he's an activist? And it's like, whoa, wait, now that in this conversation now, like some things he's doing, it's not convenient. Like, is he uh running backwards? Yeah, or backsliding? Yeah, I don't know. I
Well,
genuinely
I feel
don't
like
know. And then like
everyone's an activist for themselves, right?
I guess, but like like there are people that so bringing it full circle. So like I'm not gonna call him a big activist, but I think that that's the difference culturally between like a Kendrick Lamar and a Drake. Like Kendrick Lamar even rapped about some of it about. I'm not calling him a big activist, but I'm saying like he
Right.
didn't sacrifice his culture and being outspoken about issues for the sake in the same way that he's calling Drake out about doing it.
Yeah.
And so that's what I mean with the consistency. I think Kendrick is consistent, and I think that's why he was able to other Drake out of that and
Yeah.
kind of just move him aside. And I think people understand what he did, and they're
Yeah.
like, that's what I'm
Yeah.
saying. Like whatever he's accused, all this stuff, like people don't even care because they're like, Kendrick's our guy. He's been with us. He's not gonna backslide in for anything or anyone. And I think that was my critique on like a Ice Cube, a Taylor Swift, because like Taylor, it was inconsistent with Taylor Swift of like her advocacy and like I mean she was super political for a little bit and then just wasn't, and that's fine. Like you can change. I just think it's an interesting
Yeah.
question to volley around of like, well, where's your expectations? And then of course
Yeah.
Jay-Z, which I talked about a lot on a previous episode about him, getting paid millions and millions and millions of dollars to produce music and halftime show for the NFL, who
Yeah.
behind the curtain to help fight racism by doing that. It's like no disrespect to artistry, but
Yeah.
again, you're just an artist because literally the NFL is being sued and practicing egregious racist policies like written
Yeah.
in their literature. It's like no, if you are
Yeah.
doing
It's
stuff to
complicated.
help the league stop being racist, you're going to be in those conversations. Like
Yeah.
the Super Bowl show is literally a smokescreen and distraction if you're not also helping
It is.
with these
It is.
issues.
It's like those churches that wanted to bring in black people. White churches want to bring black people, so they get
Mm,
a black worship leader
yeah,
to sing some black songs.
yeah,
That's what it feels like. It's like the same thing. It's the
mm,
play. It's this surface level culture that they're bringing into the NFL. They're bringing in artists and music when the values, the deeper values of justice, equality, uh, the deeper black culture values are just, they're like, nope, we're not going to do that. We're just going to bring in an artist. And so Jay-Z signs up for that. But that's the thing. Jay-Z cares about the Jay-Z brand, right? Like I said, everyone's an activist for themselves. So when Jay-Z was
Yeah.
fighting the man, he was an activist against the man. But now that Jay-Z is the man, right? He's like, I'm going to make money. Like he cares about Jay-Z and then all of the Carters, right? Beyonce and
Yep.
Blue Ivy and whatever else their kids are named, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the verdict is out for me on Taylor Swift, right? She seems like a genuinely caring person. I
She
know
does.
she puts on a persona,
She
but
does.
those glimpses of who she actually is, she seems like she genuinely cares about people. And but I don't know. I don't know if she cares about women's issues and elevating women, and
Mm-hmm.
that's a good thing. Um, I don't know. Like the question still stands: Does Taylor Swift have any black friends? I don't know, but that lyric. So this is where we were headed, right, with the Taylor Swift conversation.
Mm-hmm.
The lyric in her song "Hate It Here" says, "My friends used to play a game where we would pick a decade we wish we could live in instead of this." I'd say the 1830s, but without all the racists and getting married off for the highest bid. And
Mm-hmm.
and that caused some type of stir on the internet. People felt all kinds of ways about that.
Yeah. Well,
I
what was
haven't
your
looked
what
in
was
it.
your gut reaction to it?
Well, I haven't looked into any of the controversy, so I don't know where people are coming from. It's a stinging critique of our American history, right? But I'm also like, gut reaction is like 1830s. Like I had to Google like what was happening in the 1830s. Like I know that's just
Mm-hmm.
after the
Well, some
flu,
parts you
right?
don't.
The
Some parts you don't need to
No,
Google.
that was 1918. I have no clue what happened in the 1830s. Like
Oh.
it was just our country was becoming a country, right? Like 1830s, like 1930s, I could talk about, but
Mm-hmm.
1830s, like
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, some war somewhere. So I don't know why she picked that decade, but I appreciate that she said without all the racists and getting married off for the highest bid. So women's rights and racism, right? Anti-racism. So like I'm like, yeah, that sounds good because I have played that game before in white spaces where people don't even it doesn't even occur to them that it would be bad for people like you and me to go back any decade before this decade. It would be worse, right? Right.
Mm-hmm.
To go back any decade before this decade in America, right? Or in the Western world. Like it doesn't even occur to people that when they play this cute icebreaker of like, what other time would you want to live? Um, I mean, I would say that the 2030s is a decade I want to live in, but I would also say without all the racists and getting married off to for the highest bid. Like we're
Yeah.
still doing that
Yeah.
today, right? And we'll still be doing that in 6 years. So I don't know. This line makes me see it's the first time I've heard her say anything anti-racist. And I'm like, all right, I'm good with that. I
Mm.
see you, Taylor Swift. Like, go for it.
I
So that's my
didn't.
reaction.
My gut reaction. I didn't much care. Again, I think I was consistent just naturally with like I think she's a great artist. I think that was fine. I'm a little bit more cynical viewing it. I think that there's and this might again be unfair to look even too deeply into it. I think it's partly fair because she's a deep artist and there's she writes music that's meant to be unpacked. I think her saying that line, whether she intended it to be unpacked this much or not, is more signifying and problematic because of it's problematic because of what it signifies. And I think that it's too much of a commonality to say something like that. And I feel like but without all the racist, haha, like that, it felt too lighthearted for me.
You feel like people say that? I don't feel like I've ever heard
Yeah,
anyone say
I
that.
think I think the tone of that line and how it's saying comes off like that. I don't think she. I
Yeah.
don't. I'm not
Yeah.
saying she thinks she's purposely saying like that was a
Right.
small thing, but her saying it like she did communicates that, in my opinion, and I think it signifies a deeper issue in white culture of romanticizing all these time
The
periods
past.
and being able to just be like, oh, but let's just remove this like little blip that was going on. It's like, no, that informed
Yeah.
everything. Like you said,
It
starting the
informed
country, like
everything.
it wasn't like,
Yeah.
oh, the country's being developed. It was like like
yeah.
people were
This
like chattel slavery
country,
was going on. That's why the
it
country's
was
being developed.
built
Like,
built on the back of racism.
so I'm
Yeah,
just
of
like,
racist.
that's
Yeah,
just a
yeah,
weird subconscious, I feel like,
yeah.
sickness that there is in
That's a
culture
great
still.
point. That is a great
Um,
point. Yeah,
I,
you can't separate
yeah,
time periods from racism and misogyny. Like it's a
right.
cute thought, Taylor Swift, and I think it's poignant in that it pointed out to her friends or her fans, like if this was a true story or not. It pointed out that you cannot go back to any time period in our history without
Right.
these two things being a problem:
Right.
racism and
So
misogyny.
she was
Right?
consistent, to be fair. Like
Yeah, yeah.
she
But
lumped it in with
but
women's rights.
yeah, I like what you're saying, and it's too simplistic.
Mm,
Like there's you cannot separate it out, and so I get it. I get what you're saying. Why you would respond to the lyric, but this is what makes it positive for me. Like I hear what you're saying.
mm-hmm,
It's in a song called "I Hate It Here." I hate it here. So the whole song is a critique about where she is and
mm-hmm.
where she doesn't want to be, right? And so it's not like it's in a song called "Oh, this land is great," you know, like it's in a song
This
called
land is
"I
your
hate it here."
land. This land is
Right,
my land. Yeah.
right. It's so I feel like it's a part of the lyrics and her thought process is that in her branded Taylor Swift not too punchy way, she's saying, you know, I hate it here. Consider these things. These things aren't great. So yeah, I
Right.
don't know. Maybe I'm giving her too much credit, and
No, no,
you're
no.
expecting more from white people than I am in that they would be able like you can't that they should know by now that you can't separate these things from the past, right? Like you're saying that, and I'm like maybe you're giving them more credit than I am because I'm just
I
like
don't. I know what you're
I
saying.
don't think they're going to be there. I don't think we're going to get there
Right.
if ever. Like you know, like I because I recently spent a week around let's see, some white leaders
Mm-hmm,
in evangelical spaces. And we were talking about some initiatives and how we want to reach the world and care for people.
mm-hmm,
And not once did anyone mention anything about diversity and how our culture and our world is becoming more ethnically diverse, more of a melting pot. And not once did anyone mention our need to be better at crossing cultures to care for people. Right? Not
mm-hmm,
once,
mm-hmm.
except for those that were on my team. And we're specifically, we view that. That is our job, is to see that. And that was kind of disappointing to me. And I was like, what? Will we ever make progress in becoming more culturally diverse, more culturally savvy? Um, I don't know. Like if I wasn't in the room, would anybody raise that diversity question? Would anybody raise the
Mm-hmm.
cross cultural question? So like when I see somebody who hasn't said anything about racism in any song that I know of,
Mm-hmm.
and she's a white woman at the top of the industry, and she makes one line says without all the racists, I'm just like, that's great. We made a step forward. Like good for you, Taylor Swift. Good for you.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's where I'm coming from.
No, I both think I understand what you're saying, and I, I think what I brought up about how I function. This is case in point of like I get it. Like I don't think Taylor Swift's a bad person in any way for that line specifically. Like at all. I think it's just a fair thing to critique and have
Yeah,
an opinion about. I don't go as far. I'm not
yeah,
saying you're being dramatic or anything, but I don't go as far to give her any kind of anti-racism credit for it because I feel like that was just like, I mean, what are you gonna do? Just not say that and say I wish I could go back to 1830s? Like that'd be
yeah,
colossal
yeah.
like misstep. So I don't think she would do that
But
either. I just
but
think it's a
it wouldn't
wash. I'm
have
like,
caused
eh,
a stir. It
what's
wouldn't have
that?
caused a stir. It would not have caused a stir. We hear that all the time. We hear it all the time in her type of music, you know, in
Yeah.
country music. You know, we hear going back, we hear it all the time without even a thought about the fact how brown and black people were treated in the
Mm-hmm.
past, right? So, yeah. So, I mean, I hear what you're saying. I feel like she stuck maybe not her neck out, maybe a toe out, but she stuck something out um, on the
Definitely not her neck. I can't give that. But yeah, we
like
can
she
move
did
off that.
a little
Yeah.
bit of credit, just a little, not much, just a little bit of credit for Taylor Swift.
Look,
It's
if people take something away from this, like it's about consistency and being yourself. Because we didn't even tie up. Because I know we're gonna talk about Beyonce a little bit, but we didn't even tie up some of the rap beef of the interracial stuff or biracial identity, which we
Yeah.
could do a whole nother episode on. But in that rap beef, I wanted to touch on of, um, Kendrick and people critiquing Drake's biracial identity, even aside from the being Canadian and suburban and whatever. But then Drake came back and talked about Kendrick, trying to say that he's all about black queens in the black community, but he's got a biracial wife. And so
Yeah.
I just want to
He
point
did
out
say
that
that.
like there's a lot there, and
Yeah.
that's not me and you, John Mark, critiquing bi biracial for obvious reasons. If you know us, like biracial identity as a negative thing, like that'd be
Right.
weird if we were
Right.
critiquing that. Like we're not.
That would be weird. Yeah.
But I see like I that's another thing of like just be yourself. Like Drake critiquing Kendrick is because to give Drake credit is he's responding to Kendrick coming at him for being biracial when it's like, but you have a biracial wife. How is that different? I know there's a lot of different things unpacked there, but I'm saying like
Yeah.
Drake coming at him because of that isn't necessarily because he thinks that's a problem. He just is
Right.
pointing out like, why are you pointing out that this is a problem for me when you are in this relation? Like, what's going on
Yeah.
here? And I think that's fair as well. Like that's just
Yeah. That is fair.
consistency and being yourself, and it is
Yeah.
easier said than done. But that's just what I feel like keeps coming up.
Yeah.
All right, look, let's spend the last like 10 minutes or so. It's kind of disrespectful to say about
You think
Beyonce.
you think you think that we're just gonna spend 10 minutes on Beyonce's album?
Well, I know this is disrespectful, but also how long are people gonna listen? How are we doing? Is this going well? I don't know.
I
I
think
think
it's
we're doing
going
pretty
well.
good. Okay,
I
yeah,
also think you could split the episode because it's
okay.
probably too long for
Maybe
one,
we'll
even
split
at
this,
this point.
guys.
Yeah,
Yeah.
just cut it in half.
Um, Beyonce, up and coming
Queen
artist
Bee,
as well. Yeah,
up and coming.
just feel like letting the disrespect run rampant. Cowboy Carter, Beyonce,
Yes, yes,
goes into country music. I mean, what are your thoughts
yes.
even on that? What are your thoughts on the album, Beyonce doing
I
country, all this?
I have loved the album since she announced it.
Since she announced it,
Since the
okay.
since she announced it, I've loved it. I knew it was going to be good. It did
So
not
the idea
disappoint.
of it you like from the beginning.
Yeah, and here's why. She has a song called "Daddy Lessons" on her Lemonade album, which is a country song, right? And I
Mm,
think she even performed it at the Country Music Awards, and it was not received well because of who she is at the awards, right? There was a
mm-hmm.
whole thing about that because I think people have been gatekeeping country music, right? I think
Yep.
white people have been gatekeeping country music. Not all white people, but those who are gatekeeping are white, and we're keeping Beyonce out, right?
Uh-huh.
But she grew up. I
Black
mean, she
people
talks
out.
about how she grew up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, black people, except for Darius Rucker, he somehow snuck his way in.
Mm-hmm.
Um, uh, Wagon wheel, um, but so Beyonce grew up inspired by country, loving the genre, right? She grew up in the South, so and then with Daddy Lessons, I was like, that's a great song. And so then with when she announced this, I was all here for it. But
Yeah.
I don't think that this is a country album. And I don't think Beyonce, I think Beyonce even said as much that it's not a country album, it's a Beyonce album. So she has some
Mm,
country songs on it,
yeah.
but the overall album is a Beyonce album.
Does it matter to you that again? I know this is people hate when this is done. I think it's also unfair. But to get us into the conversation, is it poignant at all that she went into country at the juxtaposition that Taylor Swift, who is formerly known as country, is not there anymore at the
Yeah,
current spots in their careers they are? Like, is that
that is funny.
culturally interesting?
It isn't. It's interesting to me as both a Taylor Swift fan and a Beyonce fan. Like
Mm,
I'm not a fan of old Taylor. I don't like her country music. I,
yeah.
never listened to it, never did. I'm not really a country music fan.
Mm-hmm.
There are some songs and uh, like there's some folk songs, some folk music that I enjoy too. I mean, Taylor Swift's album Folklore loved it. Right. So
Yeah.
there's some like country adjacent things that I love, but it is interesting that both of them have shifted genres and kind of moved around.
And I do think
And
it's
that
different. I
this
don't
is,
think Beyonce's staying there. I think she's
yeah,
dipped her toes in and is like,
yeah.
I did it.
Because she just did like what is it, a house album with Renaissance, where she
Yeah.
did the club music, which that was a some musical whiplash for me because it wasn't what I was expecting after Lemonade by Beyonce.
Hmm.
And it took me like two listens, and then I was like, oh yeah, I'm feeling this, I'm jamming with it. But so this, knowing that Beyonce will do that, I was prepared for whatever she had to offer, and she snuck the two songs out, 16 Carriages and
That's a good
Texas
one.
Hold'em.
Yeah.
And they were both really good. 16 Carriages, excellent. I think my favorite song from the album is the one that she does with Miley Cyrus, Two
Okay.
Most
So I was gonna
Wanted.
say, yeah, so good. I was gonna say, I
Yeah,
think so. It's
yeah,
if we can even do artistically like we do with Taylor Swift, I think I'm really not trying to pit them against each other. They're just both so big, and they're parallel
yeah.
in a lot of ways.
I think we'd
But
be as foolish as Kanye if we tried to pit them against each other.
yeah, they're friends. Like I don't. Yeah, they're not.
Yeah,
I won't pit them
yeah.
against
No, I don't think they're in
Kanye.
competition with each other.
um. Okay, I think Taylor Swift is a fantastic singer. She takes a lot of criticism when people say she can't
She
sing.
does. She
She's a
does.
fantastic singer. She's a fantastic singer.
Yep. She knows how to
With
use that instrument.
with
Yeah.
that said, the singing of Beyonce is
Her
unbelievable.
ability is unbelievable. The
Unbelievable.
control she has. Yeah. The
It's
range.
just
It's
so
unbelievable.
stripped down, even in Cowboy Carter, that you would think there's more
Yeah.
instrument. It's just, ah, it's
Yeah.
like her vocal. Like if so then I'm like, okay, if it's just pure Beyonce lovers and Taylor Swift haters that are critiquing, I bet that's fair because Beyonce's vocals. I was listening, I was like, oh my gosh, these are. And yeah, the one with Miley Cyrus actually stood out. I'm like, they sound
Yeah.
fantastic.
Together, they sound
Yeah,
amazing together. Like
brilliant.
I didn't see that coming, but as
No.
I hear it, it's great. And it's so interesting. Like she did Lion King The Gift, and she sang
Hmm.
Can You Feel the Love Tonight
Yeah.
with Childish Gambino, who I
Yeah.
love. I'm a
Hmm.
Childish fan. I loved his album that came out in 2020 also. And he they don't sound good together. Like they're it's like they weren't even in the same room. Like
Yeah. Maybe
there's
they
no
weren't.
they don't their voices don't blend well
When
together.
they're during
Like
COVID.
whoever was mixing that sound, oh yeah, they probably weren't.
Uh,
Yeah, whoever was mixing that sound just couldn't get them like to they. I don't know. It just sounded like each were singing a separate song, which was unfortunate because I love both their voices. So I wasn't thinking it was Beyonce's fault or his fault, but when I heard her singing with Miley Cyrus, I was blown away by how their voices just are so smooth together.
I thought
Um,
Levi's
yeah,
jeans was good with Post
yeah, that's a
Malone,
good song too.
which
Yeah,
there's some
Post Malone.
crossover Post
So
Malone in both
right, he opened up on Taylor
on
Swift's
Taylor
album,
Swift.
and
Yeah,
then he's also on the Beyonce album, and then came out like a month apart. I'm like, who is this Post Malone guy? Like,
right.
obviously, I know who Post Malone is, but the fact that he is on two of the biggest names albums
Wild.
that were released this year, like, good for Post Malone. It's good to be Post Malone.
Do you know anything about Shabuzi?
I don't.
Me
I don't.
neither. I feel like he's taken some. Actually, I don't even know flack or criticism for going for doing country, but I don't know if it's because I don't know. I know nothing
Oh,
about who that is.
yeah, I don't know anything about him.
Um, let's see. I like the alligator tears a lot. I thought
Yeah,
the vocals were really good in that song. Um,
yeah.
I'm scrolling through because I can't remember all the names. I only full
Blackbird.
disclosure, I only listened through all the way through once. Yeah,
Oh,
Blackbird was
really?
great. I thought Jolene was great.
Blackbird, the fact that she highlighted, I think it was the voices of four black country artists in that
Mm,
song.
yeah,
It's great. She's using her platform. I mean, there's
yeah,
someone who uses her platform, right?
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, yeah, for good things. Yeah,
yeah. That was fantastic. I think I honestly don't have a ton to say. I thought it was really really good. Like you, I to be fair, I can't critique a lot of from the standpoint of like as a country music album because I country is not my thing. Just not typically one that likes to listen to country music. Um,
right.
but I thought I I told Caitlin she hasn't listened yet either. We'd been planning to listen together, and then I was just like, we couldn't find time to sit down and listen to the whole thing. So,
Yeah.
um, I listened to it through once, and I was like, well, here's what I'll say: if it's a country album, it's my favorite country album because I liked it a lot better than typical country
It's
music.
true.
But I'm not a
Me
country
too.
music fan.
I don't think I've listened to a country album, so I couldn't
Right.
say that. Yeah. Yeah.
So we're probably not the people to ask, but unpacking a little bit, I'd say that from a country music standpoint, stuff I've seen or researched and whatnot, it seems like it does a disservice to what country music and actually black culture, I guess, is by saying that by giving credit to the sentiment that Beyonce is helping uh, save country music through the black experience, as if she's like one of the first people to do it. Because
Yeah.
everything I read, and again, I'm not a historian either, especially in regards to country music, but it seems like you led with, black culture was like most things, was kind of the founding culture of country music from the beginning, and then got booted
Yeah.
out and appropriated. It goes back
Yeah.
even to stuff like the actual like banjo,
Yeah.
like was like a
Coming from
founding thing
Africa.
of the culture coming from Africa, and then was
Yeah.
appropriated and used all these different ways, and then
Yeah.
black culture kind of stopped using it.
Yeah, and that's how culture shifts and grows. And music, I like the thing I love about Beyonce in this album is she plays with musical genres, right?
Yeah.
Because Blackbird's not a country song,
Right.
so what's it doing on a country album?
Right. Right.
And then she has Yaya, which I think is such a fun
Yeah.
song, right?
Yeah.
And it just plays with musical genres in that one record, that one song. But I think as far as the history, I would say that Beyonce in this album is like, it's as if she's in an old house and she's just reopening the doors. She's letting some light back in
Yeah.
to welcome back in
That's exactly
blackness
right.
into country music. Right? It's still there. It's always been there. It hasn't left, but it has been minimized and pushed to the side and marginalized. Right? And I feel like Beyonce, being who she is and the big name that she is, has opened the door for black fans, black culture to become a fan of country music again. And I'm like, go for it. Like, so even like this was before Beyonce, but John Baptiste in his latest album, he's
Mm-hmm.
got a country song, which
Oh,
I love
really?
too. Yeah, John Baptiste is great. I recommend everybody who's listening to this podcast. I'm not going to recommend any other artist that we've talked about, and we've talked about a ton. But John Baptiste, listen to his albums.
Okay.
Like his albums are amazing. They're uplifting. They're positive. They're clean. He's got great spiritual themes. He's a man of faith. He loves Jesus. He loves God, and so it comes through his music. So listen
Mm.
to it. But anyway, he's got a country song. I think he also worked with Beyonce on her album, but I think just because of how things are released, hers was released later than his. But yeah, so she's like shining a light on black artists and their ability to jump genres and jump into country music. And I think it's a great thing. I think it's a thing that's worthy to be celebrated. I'm gonna celebrate it. Part of me is from the South, the other part's from Ohio. Like my ancestors ran, but they didn't run very far. That's what I like to say. They made it
Right.
over the
Yeah.
line and stopped. So, you know, so I feel it in my roots, the countryness, and I want to listen to some country music, especially if it's coming from Beyonce. So,
Yeah.
yeah, that's my take. And maybe
Love
that
it.
did only take 10 minutes, but that album I think is great. So,
Yeah. No, that's
yeah.
fantastic. We'll put this in the show notes, but there's a fantastic Time article about the black influence in country music historically. But I just found this paragraph to be really interesting. It says the black influence on country music starts with the banjo, which is what I was alluding to, which often conjures the hazy image of a white pastoral South. But the
Mm-hmm.
instrument is a descendant of West African lutes,
Mm-hmm.
made from gourds that were brought to America by slaves and which became a central part of slave music and culture in the South. Soon the instrument was standardized, appropriated, and spread to white audiences through minstrel and blackface shows, which deeply informed the rise of hillbilly music, a term that would later be rebranded as country music. The blackface performer Emmett Miller's Lovesick Blues, for example, inspired Hank Williams' own rendition of the song, which is still one of the most beloved songs in country music history.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Yeah.
wild, man.
Deep roots.
Right.
Yeah.
Many of the songs the early hillbilly artists played were likewise inherited and adapted from black sources, like slave spirituals, field songs, religious hymnals, or the works of professional black songwriters. It's a fantastic article. We'll put it in the show notes, but yeah, wild. Which I just felt
It
like that was
is.
important to even
It
read a
is.
snippet, because I think, if you're just focused on the now, it's like, oh, Beyonce is, for most of us, it's like maybe other than Darius Rucker is like the only uh black artist we can picture
Yeah.
doing country music, I guess.
Wagon Wheel is a good song. I hear it at weddings a lot.
And then some people like to throw in Lil Nas X, all that kind of stuff. But
That's
anyway,
right. That's right. Old Town
yeah,
Road. That's right. That's
old
right.
time road.
And wasn't there? What was it? What was the name of that song? Um, that it was in the 2000. It was like Nelly. Was it Nelly?
Oh yeah.
And
Country grammar.
yeah, Country Grammar. Yeah,
Yeah, if that
yeah, that was a song. That was
maybe I
a
do like
song.
country music.
Yeah, maybe I do like
Yeah.
country music too. It's been around. It's been around longer than I thought. Oh,
That and grills.
yeah. Man, what a throwback!
Did I see the Nelly and Ashanti are together or back together? Were they together back
Over
in
and
the day?
over. The song is over and over because it's all in
Oh, okay,
my
yeah.
head. I think about it over and over again with Nelly and Tim McGraw. That was
Oh
some
yeah,
country.
yeah, yeah. That's not country grammar.
Yeah.
That's a different song.
No, that's not country grammar. That's over
Okay.
and over. That's what I'm talking about. Yeah.
Yeah, okay, I was gonna say, because that
Yeah.
that really, there's no way someone's called that country.
2004.
Okay.
2004. Yeah. It's
Wow.
good times. You were in
2004.
middle school.
I was gonna say, have you gotten to the point, John Mark, where I've been struck by how often I have to say, or I've said, and it's actually true, it's not an exaggeration, of I probably haven't done X, Y, and Z, or I probably watched that in 28 years, and it's like, really, I haven't.
Yeah. No,
Feels
really, I
good.
haven't. Yeah.
Feels
We're
good.
at it's, yeah, 2 decades.
Uh-huh.
Getting close to 3 decades. Yeah.
Whew,
It's
man.
crazy. It's
Yeah.
crazy. Yeah.
All right, we did. Look, I'm gonna. Our listeners are dedicated, man. I know that they can get through this. I'm gonna leave this
No, I'm telling
together.
you, you got to split it. Split it.
Ah,
Split
man, I
it.
don't know where to split it.
Split it.
All
I
right.
don't know.
Well, we'll see what
Sometime in
happens.
the Taylor Swift conversation, just cut
Yeah.
it in half.
Yeah. All
Yeah.
right. Well, either way, we love you, listeners. If we wind up splitting this or not, thank you so much for getting through episode 2 and episode 1, or just this whole episode. Look, we love you guys. John Mark, this has been fun, therapeutic, hopefully informative.
It has
Um,
been.
Man, I got a lot from it. Thank you guys. I'm really bad at saying this, but please remember to follow, like, subscribe, give us 5 stars, rate and review us. Please give us 5 stars. Don't give us, 2 stars. Just
Anything less.
yeah,
Only five
anything
stars.
less. I don't know how it works. Some of you guys are smarter than me. A lot of you guys are smarter than me. It has to do with the algorithm. It really does actually help us out. Please do all that for us wherever you get your podcast. Follow us on YouTube. There's more stuff going up on there. Rate, review us, follow us, like, all that good stuff. And if you want to take it a step further, for as little as $1 a month, you can help support the podcast and help be a part of some of the philanthropic endeavors we support through the podcast by going to racially speaking slash or patreon.com/racially speaking. There it is. I did it. We'll put all that, as always, in the show notes. So, all right. Thank you guys so much. The music you're listening to is done by our guy, Dylan Dent. Our artwork was created by Ashley Bush. We'll see you guys next time. Peace.
Peace.